Hey everybody. Got a little bit of an interesting story for y'all. I was out with my brother and sister-in-law the other night in the middle of the desert, about 355th Avenue outside of Phoenix. So it's probably about a 65 mile trek for me. So it's a ways out there. Took the bike, riding in the desert. It was a lot of fun, kind of scary. But we took out my brother's really nice telescope to try to escape the city lights, which kind of obscure your viewing capabilities with the telescope. And we got it all set up before sunset, and everything was great. Started looking at some things, started out with the moon, looked at Venus, looked at Mars. Anyway, so we're just kind of chilling out, looking at different things. A little bit of excitement, heard a coyote howl not too far from us, probably within a quarter mile of us, because it was between us and this mountain. And I'll try to put up a map to show you the reference, but we go out there shooting, and figured it's a good spot to go out after sunset and use a telescope. So we're out there looking at it, having fun, and suddenly, while I was trying to listen for coyotes, I heard a guy screaming, and kind of screaming obscenities, dropping the F-bomb pretty much over and over again. And after a couple seconds, I could see a flashlight in the distance. Now keep in mind, we're out in the middle of nowhere. There's really nothing out there. I mean, there's no stores, it's just plain desert. And you'll see from the aerial maps that there's nothing out there. But anyways, we heard this yelling, and trying to figure out what he was saying. I thought he was dropping the F-bomb. My brother thought he was like looking for a lost dog, maybe riding on the horse, because the guy was traversing the desert relatively quickly. And the light was kind of getting closer to us, so we started to kind of stop what we were doing and watch this guy, because of course, if this guy, he didn't sound very happy. I mean, he sounded relatively distressed. So, and we soon realized that he was dropping the F-bomb. He was pretty much not a happy camper. So, considering my brother's equipment and our safety, we decided to go ahead and pack it up and call it a night. While my brother was packing up the telescope, my sister-in-law and I were just kind of keeping an eye on the light, and it ended up turning around and going the other direction, pretty much towards the road. And the road was about maybe an eighth to a quarter mile away, not too far, but it was far enough inland from the road that if, you know, the 2 or 3 cars that drove by in the time that we were there, a few hours, you know, they can't see us. So that's kind of the idea. But so we noticed that it ended up going back to the road, and almost it looked like it seemed to go beyond the road because the light disappeared. So we got packed up. My brother led the way out in his truck. I was on the bike. I stopped right at the edge of the road, said goodbye to my brother, and took off. I didn't have my camera on at the time, and I actually had realized about about a half a mile, 3/4 mile down the road, I noticed that there was this banging, and I had previously plugged in my Drift HD 170 camera into my brother's Toyota to recharge while we were out there. and he's got one of those FJ Cruisers, so it has all the outlets and everything, so really handy. But the microphone wire was banging around on my helmet, and it was annoying the hell out of me, so I went ahead and pulled over. It is in the middle of nowhere, so very dark, and I was figuring that I'd put my my flashers on because I didn't want my brother coming up the road and not seeing me, so because I knew he was just behind me. I wasn't that far up the road. Well, after fiddling with the microphone and plugging it in the camera without taking my helmet off, I know it would have been faster to take the helmet off, but that was just me. So ended up getting it plugged back in, and I went ahead and went on my way. But then I realized, maybe a minute or two even has passed, and my brother hasn't caught up with me. So I thought, we heard these voices, or this voice back there, and now my brother's not showing up. So I got kind of scared. So I pulled out my cell phone, and I had to turn it on because my battery was dying, and proceeded to try to call my brother. And while I was calling my brother, I saw that I had a voicemail. I figured the voicemail was from my wife, so no big deal. So I tried calling my brother over and over, and my phone doesn't really like right after you boot up trying to make a phone call. And so I realized that a call had gone through. I put it on speakerphone, and my brother says, "Hey, what's up?" So he said it's still alive, or he is still alive, but there's a body, and to come back. So I said I was coming back and turned the bike around and went back to where we were, and I realized my brother's truck was basically less than 100 feet from where we turned out originally from our spot in the desert. His flashers were on, and in his headlights you could see a body laying on the ground. And he's not moving. So I pulled the bike over, talked to my brother, asked him, hey, have you talked to the guy? Have you called the police? And my brother informed me that he was still blinking his eyes, but he was not responding. So I went ahead and was kind of looking around, trying to see, did I see any tracks? Did I see any blood? Did I, was trying to find any evidence, was the guy hit by a car? Those kind of things while I was walking up, because if he had been, you don't want to go trampling on the area. So my sister-in-law's on the phone with the sheriff's department via 911, giving them our GPS coordinates because we're out in the middle of nowhere. And I go up and try to talk to the guy. Got police on the way?
Yeah, we're trying to get him out here with GPS coordinates.
I didn't see him.
I pulled over because my coat cup was in the back of the truck. And I was pulling out. I'm driving down. I'm like, holy shit, that's a body. And I turned around and came back. Sure as shit.
Did you talk to him, or?
No, he's just up there blinking his eye.
You want me to go talk to him?
He's moving.
Yeah, just tell him everything's happening.
Okay. Okay, we got police on the way. Okay? Are you hurt? Okay, well, if you can hear me, we got police on the way. See if they can help you. Are you okay? I can't tell. Well, if you can hear us, we have people on the way, okay? I asked him a couple times, are you okay? Do you know what happened? We have people on the way. You know, he would blink and he had these like slight spasms. But he was not responding. Well, I decided to go ahead and back up. You know, the guy was breathing normally, and I didn't see any blood, didn't see any trauma, so we weren't sure if he had been hit by a car, maybe got kicked out of a car. No idea what really happened, but so we, over the course of time, while we have the police on the phone, we actually go back to the guy a couple times and try to establish communication with him. And it seemed like he was responding a little bit more, to where he would like grunt after we said something to him. And the guy basically then starts moving it just gets progressively more and more. He, you know, eventually moved his head, then he moved his arms, then he started moving his legs, and then he started crawling away. And I ran up to him and I said, "Sir, don't try to move. We have people on the way." He starts making noises, groaning, grunting, at some points even like screaming, kind of a pain. And, you know, at this point we're just like, you know, this guy is hurt. And all three of us are just kind of beside ourselves because it's, you know, we're standing by watching this guy crawl through the dirt and we didn't know if he was hurt or what. And then it crossed our minds that, you know, this could just be a response. And he could be unaware that we were there. He could be trying to get out of the headlights. Or then there was a possibility that he was just drunk and didn't know what was going on. About 35 minutes later, the police show up. That was very frustrating. I can kind of understand because we were out in the middle of nowhere, but you'd hope that they would have been there faster. So they show up, ask us if the guy had crawled or walked away. And the sheriff's deputy ended up going out in the desert looking for him, found him crying in the bushes apparently, and knew his name. At that point we realized, okay, this guy is probably just drunk. Well, it turns out he was. After the paramedics show up, they went out there with all their equipment and promptly came back. And that was another sign that we realized, okay, this guy isn't hurt, he's just drunk. As he was coming back, he was screaming, he was actually on his feet by now. So, like I said, he progressively got better, which kind of leads me to believe that he had a seizure, that he was out there, he was the one screaming, because they took a flashlight out of his pocket and showed us, and sure enough, it was that bluish, whitish light that we had seen earlier. An LED style headlight, or flashlight. So, got the camera pointed at him to see what was going on, and he was saying things like how he was 50 years old, he's just a stupid drunk, he spent 26 years in prison, he's a felon, and even at one point my wife caught on the video that he said he was abducted by aliens. That's how he ended up out there. Now, being how far we were out in the middle of the desert, you would think that that's probably the more logical explanation of how he got out there, because if he was that drunk, I don't know if he could have walked that far, because I believe we were about anywhere from 10 to 15 miles away from Tonopah, which I guess is where he was from. And it is dark out there. The only thing that could really save you is the fact that there was a little bit of the sliver of the moon that you can actually see in the video. But it was very, very dark and very, very hard to see. So if he was impaired, I don't know how he got out there in that shape. Well, the sheriff's deputy ended up coming over to us telling us, thank you for calling. It turns out he's just drunk. He's refusing treatment. He's not telling us how he got out here, and that we're going to have to take him somewhere because we can't leave him in the middle of the desert, rightfully so. Well, so we end up going on our way. The guy ended up being fine. That's very fortunate. I'm glad he was okay. It's unfortunate that he was that drunk that he ended up passing out. And more than likely, like I said, he probably had a seizure. I've known people that have been drunks, if you will, and seizures are commonplace in heavy drinking. And that's really the only explanation of why he went from a position of traversing the desert terrain to passed out on the side of the road, twitching. So it's something that when I thought about starting to do vlogging on the motorcycle, I never expected to run across that. But you never know. And it even got my brother going to where he ended up putting dash cams, or a dash cam in his truck, and probably is going to end up putting dash cams in all three of his vehicles, his two vehicles and my sister-in-law's vehicle. And yeah, very, very interesting. So I was wondering if any of you guys had any experiences like that. I certainly haven't. Whether it was vlogging or not. I mean, I've come up on accidents before, and one notably that I came up across was a van full of folks visiting from Africa, and they weren't wearing their seatbelts, and their van overturned on the 101 freeway in Chandler. And there were about a dozen people scattered all over the freeway with varying injuries, all the way from deceased to just broken bones and lacerations. But, you know, accidents happen, those kind of things happen, but out in the middle of nowhere, of all the places that this guy was at, he happened to be that close to us and passed out on the side of the road that close to us. It's just crazy to think of how everything worked out that day, but again, I'm very glad he was okay. And at the end, he was handcuffed and put in the back of one of the vehicles and taken somewhere. I don't know. They won't tell me, obviously. It's none of my business, really. But it's, I'm glad to have had the camera with me. But anyways, thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll have another vlog out soon. Probably not as interesting, but we'll see. See you later.